everyone, my name is Rahana and I am the founder of MummyYoga. Today I'm going to tackle a question that is fundamental to all people who are drawn to yoga in general. And they are hopefully, and mostly in my opinion, drawn to yoga because it gives more than just physical practice. Somehow it seeps into your mind, your brain, and gives you a kind of anchoring point, a centering point to your brain that changes the way in which we perceive the world. That aspect of practice of yoga, which we broadly called mindfulness meditation, is the point that I would like to kind of talk about. Mostly it's fine if we kind of interchange the word mindfulness and meditation. They have complementary aspects and they're very, very similar in how the practice or within any particular yoga class they could be weaved in. In my classes as well, I start with one method and I move on to the other method, or sometimes interchange them in various orders. However, it is important for a student of neuroscience, a student of understanding how these practices change the way we perceive the world, to understand the distinctness of these two practices, namely mindfulness and meditation. So I hope that in today's 10 minutes I will be able to make those distinctions. At least I'll try. Let's start with mindfulness, because if you go back into the literature, somehow the mindfulness technique seems to predate what we term as meditation today. So mindfulness arrives from an old concept in Central East Asia on concentration, on developing focus and concentration. So we fixate on a particular thing. It could be as simple as our breath, our posture, our awareness of our bodily experiences. It could be anything, but I think the basic premise of mindfulness is focus, concentration, fixation. This level of hyper-focus even, so sometimes in our classes, focus on breath, I find, is still very broad when we really have to reap the benefits of mindfulness. So I would go and hyper-focus on one aspect of the breath. Then within that aspect, you could even further break it down. So for example, I ask people to kind of stop focusing on either the inhale or the exhale. We continue to focus on one part of the breath. And then within that one part of the breath, we further hyper-focus depending on what we are trying to achieve, and perhaps more on that in another short. But it is this hyper focus that allows our minds to kind of not deal with all the other things that we generally tend to do, a long to-do list and a combination of things that what we call as chatter in our mind, and it closes down the chatter and we focus on this one particular aspect, which calms the mind down and also allows us to be a lot more aware, a lot more alive in that moment. 100 years later, around the time when Gautama, the Buddha, was learning and was understanding what he was experiencing as part of his meditative techniques. If you move away from the early branch of mindfulness, you then arrive at this modern idea of meditation. Well, relatively modern, because this is still 6th century BC. So this idea of Gautama trying to rid his mind of all the sorrows that he held, the inequality, the suffering, as he says, he saw in the world, and he wanted to rid his mind of that. He came to understand that within his exploration, he came to understand that this suffering actually is just the other side of happiness and fulfillment. And if we were to attach ourselves to that suffering and feel the pain and feel hurt and feel anger and feel envy, it is a byproduct of attaching ourselves to the happiness. So we all would love to be more happy, we all love to be more fulfilled and more content. But if we like that feeling of feeling content and happy, which is driven evolutionary, inside us, we want to be that way, the byproduct of that is we will also attach ourselves to our sufferings. So his basic education in terms of ridding ourselves from suffering is a simple message. If you detach yourself from the feeling of happiness and the attachment that we get from being happy and feeling happy, you will automatically also detach yourself from suffering. Now, it really is up to us what we prefer more. Do we prefer that feeling of being happy? Well, in that case, then we need to accept that we will at some point feel sad, if nothing, to recognize that we were happy at another time. The other way to deal with this same problem or same issue, I would say, is don't feel so attached about being happy. Don't make it your life worth to pursue happiness, and in that way you won't be as attached, or you won't suffer as much when life is hard. So his idea of meditation was that detachment from anything that we hold dear, and that's a cultivated practice. So in that sort of school of meditation, this idea that we sit and watch our thoughts, or without engagement, and as we call it, the emotional hoax, the little rabbit holes that one thought will lead to another, and then it's not just the thoughts that lead one to another, it's the emotional journey those thoughts make us go through, which is really the nub of all the problems, because from that emotional journey the brain picks out suffering, the brain picks out pain, the brain picks out comparisons, envy, all those things that make us feel unwell. So meditation teaches us how to kind of not be involved in it, but understand that our mind is made to go on journeys. This is what we do. This is how we are different from other mammals, primates, animals in general. We are different because we allow ourselves to kind of go on this emotional journey. And this is probably one of the reasons why we kind of feel the suffering. So it's really up to us whether we want to not feel the suffering, or understand that when we want and pursue happiness, suffering will be a part of it. And interestingly, meditation teaches us that each one of us is different, and we might choose to accept that suffering as part of the happy feeling of being a human being and everything being worthwhile because we feel happy, or saying, well, I don't want to deal with this suffering, I will teach myself to be detached, whatever that technique. So the big difference between mindfulness and meditation is the hyper-focus element in mindfulness and the detachment that we pursue in meditation to rid ourselves from suffering, or simply to feel equanimous, as Buddha used to say. It's okay, I'm happy today. It's okay, I'm sad today. Well, today is just the day I'm meant to be living. The emotional weight of today is irrelevant almost. And that is a very valuable way to approach life as well. I would recommend you try both of those techniques, and also the hyperfocus technique really allows you to get to a point of starting to meditate. Dare I say, I feel that mindfulness is the starting point of meditation. Mindfulness allows us to understand what our mind are capable of focusing on, reduce the chatter, and gives us that primer, if you like, to start detaching. And we'll go through a lot more exercises in the coming shorts, but starting with that basic difference. I hope you enjoyed today. Any comments, any questions, any discussions, please just post it wherever you see this video, because you'll see this video in probably multiple channels. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Bye bye.